How well can you trust your own memories? To answer that, let me ask you a question. Do you like bananas? If you answered yes, you'd be wrong, because this isn't a banana. Let me explain. The typical banana that you can buy in grocery stores is known as the Cavendish banana. But prior to the 1950s, the most commercially available banana was known as the Gros Michel, or Big Mike banana. These bananas had thicker skin so they would bruise less easily, they were larger on average, and they just tasted so much better than our Cavendish bananas. Allegedly. Unfortunately, I've never had one of these super dreamy bananas, so I can't say how amazing and tasty they are. I also doubt that you had them either, unless you're a banana aficionado who bought a Gros Michel banana specifically, or a person past the age of 70, because these bananas are no longer widely commercially available. Back in the 1950s, these bananas were mostly wiped out by a strain of Panama disease, which made the Gros Michel banana no longer able to be sold and shipped worldwide. And the biggest reason that the Gros Michel banana was able to be wiped out was, well, they're all the same. You see, the oldest wild bananas look a little something like this, filled with seeds. Over time, we've domesticated these wild bananas by genetically modifying them to become both larger and seedless, which is what we see today. Because of that, these bananas that we eat have to be produced asexually because they are lacking seeds. In a sense, they're all cloned, genetic copies of one another. And this is why the Gros Michel were able to be almost entirely wiped out by Panama disease. And now we have the Cavendish banana, which has been modified to be resistant to that strain of Panama disease. But people are convinced that bananas tasted better in the past. They say that the Gros Michel bananas were better than the ones we have today. But were they? Is the Gros Michel banana better than the Cavendish? Or is it our memories, the time of our life when we ate them, and our ideas of the Gros Michel that make them sweeter? But what if you love Cavendish bananas? Would you love the Gros Michel just as much? Or what about what comes next? Because the Cavendish bananas are also genetic clones of one another, so it's only a matter of time before a new disease is able to wipe them out. And maybe, once our bananas have been modified again, the next iteration won't be as good, and our favorite and best banana will only be a memory. So with all of this information, let me ask the question again. Do you like bananas? Or do you like what they've become? Oftentimes, I think about how much my life has changed over the years. It's crazy to think of where I am now compared to 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20, and so on. Change is inevitable and has been constant throughout my entire life. Along with my own life, I often think about how much the world has changed. From the days of the Roman Empire to present day, how crazy is it to imagine how different the world is? But I like to think that the fundamental human experience has stayed relatively constant throughout the years. Our ancestors have experienced sadness, happiness, and a plethora of other experiences that we can only define as just human. But is this human experience meant to stay constant forever? This question gets me wondering what to expect from our future, both the immediate future and our future a long ways down the road, and if we'll even like what the human experience becomes. Because I can't help but catastrophize our future, especially after witnessing the creation of artificial intelligence tools and a recent stumbling across this video by the Center for Humane Technology. The hour-long discussion provides some of the most horrifying use cases for AI that I have ever seen. There have been so many new use cases for artificial intelligence that we can barely keep track of how many are coming out. From helping us edit and create photos to helping us streamline our jobs and work. AI has taken and will take over multiple parts of our lives. But for this video, one moment stands out in my mind.
This is an image of a giraffe that the computer has never seen, and this is what the computer thinks the human is seeing. What? Yeah.
And I can't help but linger on this application of AI. For an AI to process the data, signals, and activity in our brains in order to generate similar ideas, images, and thoughts we were thinking is, well, it's terrifying. I've only ever seen people focused on the fears of an artificial intelligence takeover, in the sense of losing our jobs, or losing our lives in the eventual Skynet takeover. But I don't often see people fearing over the loss of the human experience. Now I know what you're thinking. What does it even mean to have a human experience? And honestly, that can mean so many things, ranging from birth, aging, love, culture, and even death. All of these ideas have been relatively constant throughout history. But for this video, I want to narrow the scope to two main ideas related to the human experience, and how AI can and will alter them. And those two ideas are death and memory. The first time I had come to terms with my mortality was when I was 13 years old, and my brother-in-law had been diagnosed with leukemia. After 2 painful years of struggling, he passed away, and I have never been the same since that moment. In the years that passed, I have lost so many people in my life, and there are so many people that I wish I could speak to once again. I remember hearing the news about one of my good friends from high school, years later, taking her own life. I remember feeling shocked, confused, angry, and disappointed in myself. That night, I had a dream in which many of my friends were at a party for her, and she was crying alone on the couch. I turned to the person next to me and told them, doesn't she know that she has so many people who love her? And I guess that's the thing we always forget to do. We forget to tell the people we love just how much we love them before it's too late. Thinking about the absence that death brings always makes me wonder about the old people that I wish to speak to again. From my brother-in-law to my father, and even my old friends, how I wish I could speak to them once again and tell them that they are loved, and to remind them that they were cared for. But if I were given a chance to actually speak to them again, after they had passed, would I actually feel comfortable? Would it still feel the same, even though I know that they're gone? That feeling of confusion followed me as I stumbled across a company named Storyfile, which claims to create conversational AI that you're able to speak and have a dialogue with. The biggest news of the company, however, is that it can create an AI model of your loved ones who've passed away, allowing you to have a conversation with them once again. Although they make the argument that it is a way to learn about your ancestry and to make peace with your loved ones who have passed, I still feel like it's on a dangerous path. A path that would change the human experience forever. Because this is just a video now. What if we use AI programming to bring them completely back to life, to experience things again in a brand new way? Are we just creating our own very Black Mirror episode and we just don't know when to stop? Where is the line that we aren't supposed to cross? This example brings me back to a game I played last year that extends this idea further. In Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, we follow Peter, aka Star-Lord, and the Guardians on yet another adventure, and I am blown away by the writing of this game. Going into the game, I had very low expectations, especially after the latest Avengers game. But Guardians of the Galaxy wildly exceeded my expectations, primarily due to the story point of the Promise. Spoilers for those who haven't played the game. Within the game, there's a crazed cult, all accepting and getting others to accept what is known as the Promise. Later, it is revealed that the Promise is trapping them in illusions crafted from their deepest desires, in order to harvest what is known as faith energy, to free the malevolent entity Magus from being trapped in the Soul Stone. Throughout the game, you see the cast of characters struggle to reject the Promise, because it's showing them their deepest desires. And oftentimes, those desires are to be with your loved ones who have passed away. The two people that wrestle with the Promise the most is Drax, who had lost both his wife and daughter, and Peter Quill, who had lost his mother at an early age, and lost an old flame by the name of Corell. Watching their struggle with deciding on whether to accept the Promise added such a deep storyline to this game that I wasn't expecting. So much so that during these moments where Peter is with his mother again, I accidentally accepted the Promise, triggering a premature end of the game, and credits rolling. In that moment, I was confused. There's no way the game could just end like that. It felt wrong. And it was. That wasn't truly Peter's mom, alive again, but a manifestation created by Magus. You're not supposed to accept this promise, because that promise was not real. Similarly to Drax's family, each person brought back to life from accepting the promise was a lie, a fake promise of a future where their loved ones didn't pass away, and a future where the events that shaped them into who they are were modified to no longer haunt them anymore. Is that a future we are supposed to subscribe to? Whether it's Magus creating manifestations or AI creating models allowing us to talk to those who have passed away, allowing people to re-experience life with their loved ones can be a cruel experience because they are all just ghosts, an echo of themselves allowed to reverberate with no end.
Some part of me is inside the Soul Stone, but not in any way that's real.
We can figure it out. Maybe we can find a way.
You need to focus on her now.
Allowing ourselves to mourn those we've lost and continue to focus on those we have is an integral part of the human experience. For thousands of years, death has always been a way for us to truly appreciate the times we share with those around us. Because the fact that good things end makes us able to recognize what we do have now and how we can appreciate those in our lives who make everything so much better.
We were not fated to die this day. Unless, of course, Fin Fang Foom devours us whole.
And when the good times end, which they will always do, we are able to focus on moving on and letting go, to prepare ourselves for more good times coming down the road. But we can always honor those who have passed away, and we can always remember the times we have shared with them.
What are you doing?
It's an earth thing my mom taught me. The idea is that you light something to remember someone, to pay tribute. I mean, it's not magic or anything. It doesn't bring anyone back, but you know, it's a gesture. A small thing in the face of a very bad thing. Sometimes that's all we have.
The people I have lost throughout my life, I am extremely grateful for, because I was able to have them in my life, even if it was for a short amount of time. And remembering them is the way that I can keep them truly alive with me. Because if there's one good thing about death, it's the value it brings to our memories with them.
I will cherish the time that we had, and not resent the time that we lost.
But what if even those memories that we cherish, the memories of those we have lost, are modified as well? Recently, in another Black Mirror-esque fashion, Apple announced their brand new mixed reality headset, the Apple Vision Pro. And although it looks extremely goofy in my opinion, it also terrified me. Specifically, being able to relive photos and videos within a 3D space. Now, I'm not saying that photos or videos are a bad thing, and I'm in no way a memory purist and want you to only remember memories in your mind. But the idea of reliving your memories is a slippery slope for me. Being able to remember a memory with the aid of a photo and video seems harmless, but the truth is, AI is rapidly developing to alter both photos and videos. So much so that the question can be asked, will AI change our memories? And the truth is, they will, because these photos and videos were intended to capture a moment of our past, a series of images to remember what life was like. But now, from Google's Magic Editor to Adobe's Photoshop Generative Fill, to even modifying the very language that is spoken in a video,
軽蔑してるよね。仕方ないよ。Y es todo por mi culpa.
everything in our lives is becoming a narrative that we can modify and alter on how it is presented to the world and how we remember it. Because let's be honest, our memories aren't the most reliable things. We may remember the day was sunnier than it actually was. A smile was actually a frown instead, and the way we perceived the world wasn't exactly how the world was. But this brings me back to the Apple Vision Pro. If we can actively modify almost every aspect of digital media, every aspect of a memory that we cherish, what happens when we put on that headset and relive a memory that is entirely false? Does the value of that memory diminish if it never happened in the first place? This question brings me back to another game I've played and cherished myself for how deeply it has affected me. In To the Moon, you play as the duo of Dr. Neil Watts and Dr. Eva Rosalind, who both work for Sigmund Corporation, a company that specializes at fulfilling wishes of dying people by changing their past memories. Again, these are going to be major spoilers ahead for this video, so if you're interested in the game, I definitely recommend you playing it first. In the game, both Neil and Eva have been hired for a specific contract to get Johnny Wiles to the moon. As the doctors begin diving into Johnny's memories, they soon realize that even Johnny himself does not know why he wants to go to the moon. Deep down, he feels a desire to go, but can't articulate why. This leaves both Neil and Eva frustrated as their job becomes much more complicated. So they both venture through his memories to find out why Johnny wanted to go to the moon in the first place. Throughout their journey, they learn more about Johnny's life, largely revolving around a somewhat unhappy marriage to his teenage sweetheart, River, who is implied to be on the spectrum. Upon reaching his childhood, however, they find that those memories had become inaccessible due to Johnny receiving a large dose of beta blockers as a child, despite not having a heart condition, which caused significant memory loss. Something in his childhood was repressed, and only the smell of roadkill would jog his childhood memories, allowing both Neil and Eva to traverse them. As they dive deeper into Johnny's memories, both Neil and Eva also find out that River, Johnny's teenage sweetheart, had actually met Johnny during her childhood, when both of them were at a carnival as young children. During this encounter, they share a heartfelt moment together and create their own constellations together, one being of a rabbit with a blue night sky as the head and extremities, and the moon as its big round belly. Soon after, Johnny's mom calls out for him, causing Johnny to leave in a hurry. In their final moments with each other, Johnny gives River a platypus doll he won at the carnival, and they vow to come back together at the same place and time next year. River, saddened that he's leaving, asks, "What if you forget or get lost?" Johnny exclaims, "Then we can always regroup on the moon." As Johnny leaves, a tragic fate befalls the Wiles family, as Johnny's twin brother, Joey, tragically dies as his mother was backing out of the driveway. In her grief, Johnny's mother gives beta blockers to Johnny, causing him to forget all instances of his twin brother and early childhood memories, including the memory he shared with River at the carnival. As Johnny's life progressed, he begins to date and eventually marries River, who does not directly tell Johnny about their first meeting. This causes a strain on their marriage, as she constantly tries to indirectly jog his memory. She cuts her hair and crafts numerous paper bunnies, including one with a blue head and extremities and a white belly, all to no success. She eventually passes away, without being able to have Johnny remember their first night together. In this moment, where they had first met, both Neil and Eva realize Johnny's underlying desire to go to the moon. It wasn't some childhood dream to experience space travel, or to be a famous astronaut, but to be with River, again, who had passed away and left Johnny alone. Eva decides what she must do, and, against Neil's protests, deletes the incident of Johnny's brother, Joey, dying, and restructures his entire history, including his history with River. Every moment he had shared with River while growing up had been modified, with River replaced by Joey. Johnny begins to remember a life that never happened, one where he trained to be an astronaut, sacrificing moments of his youth to be serious about his mission. and eventually meeting River as another astronaut in training. In a final, heart-wrenching scene, the space shuttle launches to the moon, and we see Johnny's revised memories. One where he and River get married like before, but with Joey's presence in all of Johnny's major life events. And the friction in their marriage caused by the memory loss was erased, giving them a long and happy marriage. One that wasn't real. As the shuttle almost reaches the moon, River extends her hand out to Johnny, who grabs it as they go to the moon together. To the Moon is a game that tore my heart out because Johnny died remembering a life that wasn't true. He died believing that he never forgot anything and that his marriage had less problems than the one he had with River, while she died thinking that he had forgotten their first encounter. And this ending left me feeling so conflicted. Are we supposed to be happy that a person remembers a life happier than the one that they lived? Are we supposed to accept that the modified memories he remembered in his final moments were better than his actual memories? Would I be comfortable living a life that is modified to have a better ending than the truth? No matter what question I ask myself about the ending, I don't see a clear definitive answer, and I'm left still conflicted. On top of that, with the advancement of AI in the real world, I have yet another question to ask. Would I be less conflicted if Johnny was able to speak to an AI version of River again after she had passed? If that fake version of River was able to have more time to tell Johnny what she'd been trying to tell him his whole life? Would I think that would have been a better ending for Johnny? To gain closure from a fake version of his wife? Instead of remembering an entirely fake version of his life? I don't know. Maybe there is an answer. You know, maybe the human experience should change. Throughout this video, I've been discussing how AI will fundamentally change the human experience. But is that really a bad thing? Because again, what does it really mean to have a human experience? The two ideas I've covered in this video are death and memories. And in order to convey my point, I use fictional stories, one containing space aliens who are, by definition, not human, and another with River, who had a completely different human experience being on the spectrum. So, is it really fair to say that AI will change what the entirety of the human experience is? If there are so many different versions of what a human experience could be? Or will it just change what we experience as humans? Despite the stories discussed not being factual stories of a typical human experience, they are still built with the fundamental building blocks of what we define as a human experience. Building blocks like love, belonging, death, and memories. So what happens when these building blocks we discussed all change? Will we still be able to have a human experience? Or will it be something entirely new? To answer that, I will turn to one of my favorite thought experiments, the ship of Theseus. I was first introduced to this thought experiment through a 2012 Indian movie by the same name. For those unfamiliar with the thought experiment, Theseus, the mythical Greek founder/king of Athens, rescued the children of Athens from King Minos after slaying the Minotaur and then escaping onto a ship. Each year, Athenians would commemorate this event by constant maintenance of the ship and having it set sail on a pilgrimage. As the ship of Theseus became worn and needed repairs, it was replaced part by part,
up to a point where not a single part from the original ship remained in it anymore.
Is it then still the same ship? What if all those discarded ship parts were used to build another ship?
Which of the two, if either? is the real ship of Theseus.
Looking at the human experience, if we remove every single building block of the human experience and change them individually, if we experience love, belonging, death, and memories in an entirely new way, do we still have the same human experience? What if all the original building blocks were to be experienced again, in the future, in the way that we experience them now? Would they be more of a human experience than the experience that would be modified by AI? What human experience, if any, would be considered a real human experience? And this question brings me back to the movie, Ship of Theseus. Again, major spoilers. The movie explores organ donation and the themes of identity, meaning, and death with its three main characters. But for this video, I want to focus on one, Alia Kamal, an Egyptian photographer. Alia became visually impaired due to a cornea infection and uses her other senses of hearing, touch, and smells to lead her to locations that call out to her and take pictures. These photos find great success as people are captivated by them and how they capture the essence of not only the world, but someone's experience of it. Later, Alia expresses frustrations for taking pictures, as she doesn't want them to be celebrated just because someone who is unable to see took them. Suddenly, Alia is contacted by a doctor to let her know they found a donor for her long-awaited cornea transplant. The transplant is a success, and she is finally able to see again, and her experience of life becomes changed forever. Immediately after, she begins combing through her extensive library of photos and dives into her family photos as well. She is invigorated and excited to begin taking more photos, but soon finds herself overwhelmed with the outside world. She struggles with the myriad of things she desires to take photos of, and she realizes that she dislikes the new photos she's been taking. It's as if adding her sight back into her arsenal ruined her experience of taking authentic, genuine photos that she loved. In her final scene, she travels out into the wilderness, attempting to capture its beauty, but soon realizes that just like before, her photos cannot capture the beauty in the same way anymore. She sits on the bridge, taking it all in, and drops her camera lens cap into the river, with it lost forever. This final moment has stayed with me since I watched the film back in 2012. It shows that her fundamental human experience had changed, whether for the better or for worse. But I often think that it's difficult to tell whether a change will be a good thing for our futures. When discussing AI, it's pretty scary on how fast it's evolving, and there are many paths that it can take to shape our future. Whether that's in a way that is meaningful and that will make our lives better than before, or in a way that could ruin our fundamental building blocks of the human experience. AI could cause us to become completely changed and unrecognizable to our current selves. But if there's one thing that has been constant throughout the history of the human race, it's change. I started this video by discussing how crazy it is to imagine where I was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and even 20 years ago, and that I thought the fundamental human experience had stayed relatively constant. But that couldn't be farther from the truth. One problem I've been having throughout this video is the question, what is a human experience? And that question makes me remember one of my favorite sayings. Humans share about 50% of their DNA with bananas. Any banana. And I always find it funny when someone says it, because I imagine myself as 50% banana and 50% not banana, I guess. But sharing 50% of our DNA with a banana doesn't make us a banana. Just because we share the same building blocks doesn't mean those building blocks were organized in the same way. Had our DNA been organized in an entirely different order, sure, we could say that instead of a human experience, we could be having a banana experience. But unlike bananas, we are not genetically identical copies of one another. I've been constantly referencing ideas of fundamental building blocks which are sort of universal for everyone. But just because we share experiences doesn't make them universal, because the way we experience life is often an interpretation of everything that surrounds us. The photos and videos we take are never meant to be an accurate reflection of what the world was for that moment, but what that moment meant to us. Because when I begin doom thinking, I tend to lose sight of what's important in stories. The story of Guardians of the Galaxy was always designed to highlight not wanting what you lost, but appreciating what you have now. And the story in To the Moon was not about if Johnny remembered a false life, but that he could have more experiences with the love of his life once again. And finally, in The Ship of Theseus, watching Aaliyah lose her passion for photography in that moment was never supposed to be a bad thing. Her life and experiences have fundamentally changed, but that is no indication that her life will no longer have good memories, that she won't experience happiness again, or that she won't take a photo she loves again. Because I always thought The Ship of Theseus was a silly thought experiment. A ship isn't just made of wood, and a home isn't made of just a house. It's made with the memories of what we experienced. It's made of the stories enjoyed and told. And it's made of the love we have for it, which makes it so hard to say goodbye when the time comes. And deconstructing this ship leaves that ship dead, and we can only mourn what we have lost, not for what we gain. So neither of the new ships could ever be the true Ship of Theseus, even if it contained the same building blocks as before, because our experience of the ship has been fundamentally changed forever. And as AI fundamentally changes our human experience, it will evolve into a form that we can only experience together. Whether that experience ends up good or bad, I know that the human experience will always change into something that can provide us with true connection to each other. And who knows? Maybe we will end up liking what's to come more than what we've had. Or maybe we'll look fondly upon what we had, just like the Gros Michel banana, but still be able and grateful to have our Cavendish bananas instead. But once everything changes, I must ask you the question again. Do we like bananas? Or do we like what they are becoming?